Helljumpers, Chapter 6, Part 2. June 23rd, 1400 hours, Day 12. Nothing was moving on the motion detector, and Twilight didn't like it. About an hour ago, the starting signal for the match of Capture the Flag had been given, and the fact that they hadn't encountered Scootaloo's squad yet was unnerving, as they had expected for Scoots, Zoe, Lucy, and Tyler to attack as quickly as possible. With that in mind, Mac had opted that they play defensively, and the fact that they had a man less than the other team also played into that decision. But now, after waiting for almost an hour, Twilight's initial adrenaline was fading, and she was starting to lose focus.
I wonder if with the weakened thematic background, a portal spell will still be a viable way to get back home.
Twilight lit her horn briefly to get a reading on the magic field, being careful not to waste her personal reserve. With Twilight momentarily distracted, a small camouflaged being moved unseen from a bush to another and kept creeping forwards towards the distracted mare.
Compensating for dilation,
Twilight's thought process was cut off by a vicious shock to the neck moments after her entire world went black. Scootaloo was grinning. The last hour had been extremely boring, but the payoff was completely worth it. Twilight had eventually lost focus, allowing for her to sneak up on her and take her out with a taser in knife form. Tapping the button on her radio twice, she signaled the others that Twilight had been eliminated. Immediately after tapping the radio, she received on-tap back from the other members of the squad. Scootaloo had been tasked to move as stealthily as possible to the location of the enemy flag. Propping herself up against a ridge, she scanned the surrounding area for either Woods or Mac. A burst of rounds hit the stone in front of Scoots, forcing her back into cover as rounds flew over the position where her head had been a few moments ago, quickly pushing the send button on her radio to relay a message to the others.
"Dagger to sword, I've been made!"
She shouted into her mic, slightly panicking.
"Copy that, Dagger. Sit tight, sword's coming!"
Lucy's voice came from the radio immediately, after which machine gun fire could be heard to her right as they presumably engaged either Mac or Woods. But Sword wouldn't be able to solve any of her immediate issues. She pulled a smoke grenade from an attachment point on her tactical vest and lobbed it over the ridge. After a few seconds of letting the smoke saturate the air, she made a beeline to a large boulder to her right, detaching her MA-37 assault rifle and peeking around the rock to see if she could spot the person who had tried to shoot her. Again, the rounds impacted the rock instead of her head, but this time she had spotted the muzzle flashes from the rifle.
Darn, I'm in motion tracker range!
Scootaloo thought as she pondered on how she was going to get out of this situation. At that moment, she looked at her own motion sensor and saw that a red dot was moving quickly to her right, trying to flank her. With her rifle ready, she looked around the rock and could clearly see Woods running to a new position. Scootaloo struggled to keep the recoil from the rifle under control as she held the trigger down and pointed the rifle at Woods. All but 3 of the rounds missed, but 3 rounds were more than enough. The first one grazed Woods' leg, causing him to stumble, after which the second and third shot hit him straight into the chest, knocking him out cold. Scootaloo, now looking at the unconscious body of Woods, got a deeply uncomfortable feeling.
I took out Twilight and Woods without a second thought. Is that what I am now? A merciless killer if I need it?
Shaking off the feeling, Scootaloo turned to the task at hoof, the flag planted 30 meters away from her position. She could still indeed hear gunfire from the firefight the others were having with Mac, knowing that he wouldn't be able to stop her if she made her way over to the flag, being careful not to step on any booby traps.
Dagger to sword, Woods is eliminated and the objective is recovered. Heading back to base,
she reported as she started running back to base with the flag.
Roger that, Dagger. We'll meet up back at base.
A few minutes of running later, Scootaloo arrived back at the site of their flag, and she dropped the captured flag at the base of their own, immediately after which a voice could be heard.
Red team has captured blue team's flag. Match over. Please return to the armory.
A few minutes later, Scootaloo met up with Tyler, Lucy, and Zoe. Zoe being supported by Tyler as she appeared to have 2 red dots on her leg from when the rounds hit.
You did a damn good job back there, Squirt,
Zoe said, but she could see that there was something bothering the filly.
What's wrong, Scoots?
Scootaloo having her questions about herself in the forefront of her mind.
It's just... when I eliminated Twilight, I just sliced the knife over Twilight's neck. No second thoughts, and same with Woods. I'm just scared that I might become just some merciless killer.
Lucy stopped walking and kneeled down to Scootaloo's level.
Scoots, the fact that you're regretting shooting your friends, even though it was only a training match, that shows that you're not a monster.
Lucy then gave Scootaloo a friendly nudge.
Here, let's go see the others. Or at least when they wake up after the beating you gave them,
she added with a grin. June 25th, 2350 hours, day 14. 2 days. It's been 2 days since she had been tased by Scootaloo, and she still had trouble with some spells. In the end, it had been her own fault that she had let her guard down for just a small moment, which allowed Scootaloo to sneak over and take her out. A mistake that she would never repeat again. But, with her magic returning again, she had managed to recast the detection spell and ran the calculations. And she didn't really like the results. Even if the humans had all the necessary magical ingredients to create the chalk for the magical circles, the ambient background magic still wouldn't be able to sustain a portal of the supposed power needed to transport them back to the nearest star, let alone Equestria. Performing the ritual in slip space where the magical field was much stronger was also put out of the question, since they had all figured out that teleportation essentially was a magic-powered short-range slip space transition. So teleporting in slip space would drop you out into real space, which would be a quick way to die, since that would most likely be in a vacuum somewhere in interstellar space. With magic not an option, Twilight had turned to physics, a subject Equestria had only a limited amount of knowledge since they mostly relied on magic. After getting a good grasp on the basics she had gotten into, with astrophysics, to get an understanding of the movement of heavenly bodies, she didn't really like what she found. You see, even with the smallest stars, the habitable zones are a few light minutes away from the star itself, meaning that in the hypothetical situation that a being could move a star, the effects wouldn't be seen on the planet until the light of a star has finally reached the planet, and that's not even accounting for the gravitational sling the planet would get from moving a star like that. In short, there was no way in Tartarus Princess Celestia was moving the star in Equus's system. After panicking for about an hour, Twilight had run the magical calculations and come up with the same answer. Impossible. Although, she has found a workaround. If Celestia uses the sun as an anchor to accelerate the rotation of Equus, then the magic required would be within passable margins. Figuring out all of this was good and all, but the discovery meant that there was nothing really special about Equus's system, and other than the habitable planet, which meant there was nothing easily detectable about the system at all. She was back to square zero. At this point, Twilight decided that it was getting too late and she couldn't afford to have too little sleep. Tomorrow was another match of Capture the Flag, and this time she wouldn't repeat the stupid mistake from last time. She even cooked up a low-powered shield spell that could take a couple of hits before dissipating. This time, it would be Scootaloo's turn to lose, she thought to herself as she dozed off. July 16th, day 35. The group before her had assembled in the courtyard of the base in front of the Spartan. 5 weeks of rigorous training behind them. They had all picked up new skills they never thought they would ever learn. Twilight, with her pathological need for knowledge, has read up on every bit of information on healing she could get her hooves on. Her shooting abilities also were something to be envious of. She was able to hit targets at quite long ranges, considering her primary weapon was a DMR. Scootaloo, on the other hoof, had become extremely proficient at close-quarter combat. As it turns out, that Pegasi have better reflexes than regular humans, which Twilight speculated was due to Pegasi having to make split-second decisions when flying. She even had a few sparring sessions with the Spartan because, in the end, the ODSTs couldn't keep up with her, and even though she got beaten every time, the petty officer had still conceded that she held her ground longer than most of the other soldiers. Other than the SMG, which Scoots had also learned to use to great effect in practice matches, where she seemingly always managed to eliminate Twilight. Her wings had, since the operation, grown out a bit but only granted minor improvements in flight capability, since the minor improvement allowed her to jump large gaps and perform power slides.
All of you have made extraordinary improvements in your respective fields of expertise, and it has been my pleasure to help prepare you for the future trails to come.
The Spartan stopped for a moment, looking over at the ponies.
Trainee Sparkle, Trainee Hurricane, step forward.
The 2 ponies stepped forward as instructed, so they were standing in front of the Spartan.
As of yesterday, High Command has approved your request to join the UNSC Marine Corps.
the Spartan stated, and motioned for two of the trainers to come over, both of whom were carrying a large package.
Because standard equipment wouldn't fit your unique bodies, a custom uniform and armor suit have been made.
At that moment, the trainers handed over the two boxes.
Wear them with pride, Helljumpers. You've earned them. You'll have to get used to the extra weight from the armor, so you'll have to train with it on for the next few weeks. I'll be traveling back to Earth in 6 hours, so that training will be left to the other instructors here. You're all dismissed for the day,
Spartan 062 said before turning around and leaving the courtyard. July 24th, Day 43. 8 days have passed since the Spartan left. The two ponies had been getting used to the extra weight the suits added to their bodies, but both ponies found it manageable. Also, the extra features like the visor and a visual IFF system helped a lot in combat drills. The ponies were waiting to practice for a simulated insertion with drop pods as alarms started blaring. All military personnel report to your superior officer for deployment. Winter contingency has been declared. This is not a drill, I repeat. This is not a drill. The message repeating itself. 6 weeks ago, neither Scootaloo or Twilight would have known what winter contingency meant, but after memorizing as many protocols and signals as possible, they knew all too well what this meant. The Covenant had found Reach.